trades from Thursday. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in here with the replay feature. That's the whole daily candle, but we can see details on the smaller time frames. So let's go ahead and mark up these zones here, roughly 950-ish area, and this one being down here. Excuse me. So basically what I'm doing here on the daily is I'm just looking for where price could continue because we can see price did close beneath this level of support. So what I was expecting was a tap up and continued drive to the downside, basically mirroring this clean bullish move to the upside on the daily. So that's really all I was looking for on the daily, keeping in mind maybe this level here could get a sort of reaction at with the resistance and support. But I'll mark that up on the smaller time frames to show you some more details. So on H4, this is the whole trade. So let me take this thing out and give you an idea of what I saw. So looking at H4, there's another level down here. Could it be respected? But more or less clean traffic coming all the way down. Looking at H1, we can go ahead and clean up this zone here based on what we're seeing on H1. Maybe put this at 151 because it's an even psychological number that we can expect price to potentially have a reaction at. So mark up this zone, mark up this one at about 700-ish. Put a zone around this. And then looking left on this, it was respected here, and this level of resistance was acting as support before. So we can see price is just sort of stuck in this range here. Looking on M30, it looks like this is the lower high that was created on the push to the downside. So this being here, just a sort of consolidation phase, looking at it like this, price is just consolidating back up to make a lower high to continue down from what it looks like. So this is just sort of like a range price is in, sort of like an ascending range within this range here. So what I was waiting for was a break above or below to take some trades, and the break above did happen with this candle here, or this candle, I'm sorry. And when this candle closed above, the only reason the buys didn't look attractive was because, this is a decent range. Sorry, coming up from here to here. You got about a 15 pip range, this resistance, but I was willing to miss this move to get this move if it was to continue, which is a lot cleaner to me. 46 pips, 42 pips to this resistance or support here, with the clean traffic on the left and the clean traffic here. This 42 pip move looked a lot more attractive to me to take buys. So I was willing to miss the first move. I don't need to necessarily be in on the first move. Once it's clear to me where price is going to go, then it makes more sense to take a trade then. And you can see this channel is still sort of being respected too. So let's go ahead and keep continuing. This is the actual trade candle. So let me go ahead and go on to the 15-minute, no, actually the hourly first. So the hourly we can see close with a wick at this level. So the new hourly opened up and then broke the wick and continued to drive down. And this move happened. The 30-minute you can see it was quick. 15-minute it was pretty quick. 5-minute pretty quick. So it's like as soon as the candle opened, it just dropped, and that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting it to break and close beneath, and then come back up and make some sort of resistance, and then continue down. So it's really just why I didn't catch this on the first impulse to the downside. But being that the daily's bearish, 4 hours bearish, hourly's bearish, 30 minutes bearish, 15 minutes bearish, on the 5-minute still bearish, what I was doing is going onto the M1 time frame because I was seeing how fast price is moving. And if all the time frames are pointing towards sells, it makes sense to look at M1 with the volume that we're experiencing for a break of support and an entry after the break of support. So this is the most recent level of support that I saw on the 1-minute. So I put a sell stop at 615, but I got triggered at 599 just because of the volume. It was really high at this point, so it skipped my entry. Stop loss pretty much just above this area because if it did start to break this high and come back up, the hourly now looks like it's getting back up into the range, so I no longer want to be in the trade. So let's go back down to the 1-minute. And pretty much that was the entry there. It was within this candle that had dropped. You can see this candle dropped within 1 minute. Again, another 10 pips in 1 minute. So it's, you can see volume is really high at this point. And what I ended up doing was closing my 80% at 10 pips. So pretty much like around this area, I closed 10 pips, put stop loss at break even, and then started to monitor the trade on M15. Let me also mark up the target that I had to the left because looking at M1, there's a level right here, like around 300 that I had marked up that I was targeting if price was to break that level that it could reach. So looking on the 5-minute, let's go back down here. Probably drag this down a little more, drag it across. So the runners were still left in, about 20% of the position was still running. So what I was doing was just basically watching price action on the 5 minute, looking at the 15 minute, seeing what's going on. So on the 5 minute, ended up closing out a portion when I saw some bullish price action. I believe it was after this candle here. So I ended up closing 10% of the runners and then just leaving the rest at break even, which is eventually stopped out right here. So ended up getting stopped out on a wick, and it would have still ended up stopping me out here or here, came back down. But all in all, ended up securing 80% on the 10 pip move here, and then the other 10% on the go back down to the 5 minute. Oh, we're on the 5 minute, perfect. So around here, the other 10% was closed here, and the rest was closed at break even when price came back up. So let's go ahead and look at this part here. Rewind this candle and go ahead and show you New York. So the London runners were still there at that point, but they got stopped out. So then in New York, I was looking at basically like a break and retest setup to retest the lows. So the new lows are down here, and looking at the price action that we're seeing prior to New York, we can see that the last H1 candle for 6 a.m. closed with a bearish candle. So what I'm looking at on M30, we got a doji and a bearish candle. So it looks like price could potentially continue down. Watching it on M15, I had this zone marked up along with this zone, and I'll explain why in a second, and this zone, because you can see on M5, this is pretty clean. We can see that price did reach a level of resistance here, support, resistance, bounced around in this range, and this was around when the new hourly candle was opening up, because we can see this one closed like this at 6, so the 7 o'clock hourly candle was opening up, and this is 6:55. So what I was waiting for, you know, this was a quick move on the last hourly candle. So I was expecting the same thing with the New York volume if it was to continue down to be potentially a fast move as well. So I was watching M5, waiting for this structure here, this range, to break to the downside and do some sort of retest to continue down, or just entering on an impulse when it breaks support. So what I was doing was I saw this one close above the level at 6:55. Watching this one here, this is the first M5 candle within the new hourly candle. So I waited for this one to close, and then when this one closed, I entered on the next candle, breaking the low of this candle here, the support to the left. So entering this like this, stop loss was right here. It was pretty much just above the new hourly candle, because if this one started to come back up, it could test the top of the range. So this was also a fast move too, if I'm not mistaken. Going back down to the 1 minute, you can see price just started to drop in 2 minutes. So that was basically where my entry was on the M5 time frame. Ended up securing the 10 pips at 80%. So somewhere around here. And it was just a straight melt. Like you can see these candles open with no top wicks, melt, no top wick, came down, no top wick, came down. So it was just like a really fast move again, similar to like what happened over here in London. So it was the same, basically the same story in New York all over again. Like it wasn't something that I was willing to miss, because seeing how high volume was on the London session, it was something I was expecting in the New York session. So once I made that entry there, I ended up securing the 10 pips somewhere within this candle here, and just monitoring the trade, seeing where it could go. Let me go ahead and skip some more candles. Stop loss was at break even at this point, and the target that I had being this low here, pull this down a little bit more, maybe about like 220-ish area, being a little conservative, probably 225. So I ended up closing a little bit more when price came back down to the 200-ish area. So if I'm not mistaken, it was a little bit farther down here with the wicks to the left. So probably move this zone down a little bit more. Secured a little bit on the when the wicks came back down here closer to 200, and closed out 10% of the runners. And then the additional runners were closed out when price retraced and came back down, because I had seen this, retracement here, price came back down, and I closed the rest here because it was looking like it could potentially bounce off this level and this level. So I closed the whole trade. I didn't even leave it at break even at this point. But if I did, it would have been a pretty good trade, because it would have still kept going. So, but all in all, it was still a good trade. Was able to secure from this position. I wasn't really trying to get too greedy since I got the trade from London already. I was willing to just close this out. If it goes, it goes, no problem. It was a second trade for the day. But that was pretty much it for the London and New York trades for Thursday. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram, swole_pockets, SWOLE_pockets, POCKETS. Thanks so much. Take care.